Following the events of episode 5 of the Amazon Prime Video series, Galadriel, Halbrand, Elendil, Isildur, and the army of Queen Regent Miriel have sailed for Middle-earth to join the Southlanders in battle. As the legions of orcs loyal to the evil Adar approach, the Sylvan elf Arondir seeks to save the Southlanders hidden at the Watchtower. Will any of them make it through the impending attack? Here is everything you need to know about The Lord of the Rings of Power Episode 6. There are spoilers coming, so beware. Adar digs into the soil in the Southlands and shouts, "New life!" in defiance of death. Then Adar gives a speech to encourage his supporters before advancing on the Watchtower with his army of traitorous men and orcs. Adar enters the stronghold through the door easily after arriving there and discovers that it appears to be deserted. Adar commands the orcs to hunt after smelling Arondir nearby. As they look, Arondir shoots an arrow that causes the Watchtower to explode and subsequently fall on the orcs inside the stronghold. Many of the orc family members marching up the mountain to the Watchtower are also crushed when the tower collapses. The Southlanders return to the settlement of Turharad to get ready for another battle with the remaining orcs after watching with joy as the plan came together. On his father's ship from Numenor, Isildur awakens and feeds his horse before stepping up onto the deck as the sun rises. Galadriel then approaches Elendil's son and counsels him to be humble as he expresses his desire to leave Numenor as it has become. They talk about their impending arrival in Middle-earth and the conflict that would arise there, and Galadriel remarks on his resemblance to his father. Isildur remarks that others have told him he resembles his mother. Isildur then retreats inside as Elendil approaches. Elendil answers Galadriel's inquiry regarding Isildur's mother by saying that she drowned. Elendil provides Queen Regent Miriel with an update on their expected arrival time in Middle-earth within the cabin. Theo observes as Arondir, unable to destroy the hilt that Adar desires, departs from Bronwyn to conceal it in Turharad. Many of the villagers take positions around the town as Arondir and Bronwyn direct them to prepare for the onslaught, and Theo watches after the children and the old inside the bar. Theo asks Bronwyn to share with him what she used to do when she was young and terrified before they begin their responsibilities. In the end, she responds, "This darkness is simply a small and transitory thing. Find the light, and the shadow will not find you. There is light and high beauty forever beyond its reach." Following a violent encounter with an orc, Bronwyn manages to start a fire in a wagon that rolls into the hamlet and strikes some of the orcs as darkness falls, and the orcs soon follow. After further fires trap the other orcs, Arondir and the archers begin to attack them. A few of the trapped orcs retaliate with fire, and a particularly massive orc engages Arondir in severe one-on-one battle. Although Arondir appears to be in immediate danger, Bronwyn saves him by killing his assailant. The Southlanders defeat the orcs before more adversaries, led by Adar, show up and launch an assault. As the Southlanders retreat inside the tavern, many of them are slain and some are injured, including Bronwyn. Theo is compelled to help Arondir treat Bronwyn's arrow wound as they take out the knife and cauterize her wound out of fear. Eventually, the orcs enter the tavern and pose a threat to everyone there unless Arondir turns over the hilt. Theo gives the hilt to Adar and reveals its location when Bronwyn's life is in danger. A rumble is heard as Galadriel and Halbrand lead the army of Numenor into the settlement and ruthlessly battle the orc hordes, just as it seems all hope is lost. Adar assigns an assignment to the cunning Southlander Waldreg before the soldiers show up. Arondir also starts to fight back inside the tavern as the conflict quickly shifts away from the orcs. Elendil's life is in jeopardy during the conflict, but Isildur enters the battle with the Queen Regent's approval and saves his father. Galadriel follows Adar after spotting him fleeing the combat on horseback into a woodland after Arondir cautions her that he cannot escape with his sword. Halbrand pursues Adar with a spear in hand as well. Halbrand enters from the opposite direction and manages to trip Adar's horse, sending the corrupted elf to the ground as Galadriel commands her horse to pick up speed and catch up with Adar. Halbrand then pokes his spear through Adar's hand as he reaches for the hilt and says, "You remember me?" In response to Adar's denial that he can recall Halbrand, the latter raises his spear and prepares to slay the latter until Galadriel intervenes and says they need him still alive. Adar inquires if he inflicted suffering to someone Halbrand loves after Halbrand says she has no idea what he done, thinking either a woman or a little child. As a result of Galadriel's urging, Halbrand recants. Some of the orcs are being bound in the village as Isildur, Untamo, and Valandil remark on how unappealing Middle-earth and battle are. While Valandil and Isildur intend to accompany Galadriel's company to find the escaping orcs, Antamo states that he has had enough of fighting and would prefer to assist the Southlanders in rebuilding. Adar is chained and being questioned by Galadriel inside a barn. She notes that he is a corrupted elf who served Morgoth and was the first of the orcs. Adar makes the remark that he is an Uruk. Adar scoffs at Galadriel's question about Sauron's whereabouts because he does not work for the Dark Lord. Adar reveals that Sauron dedicated himself to repairing Middle-earth when Morgoth was vanquished, restoring the torn regions together in perfect order as a result of Galadriel's threat to release the captured orcs into the open air. According to Adar, Sauron intended to create an unseen world power rather than one based on physical strength. Despite the lives that had been lost, including those of Adar's children, Adar declared that Sauron had failed because a shadow of dark knowledge had managed to remain concealed from him. The corrupted elf then asserts that he killed Sauron by splitting open him. Galadriel contests his claim that he vanquished Sauron. The Southlands will soon belong to the orcs, as Adar makes very apparent. According to Galadriel, Adar won't succeed, who dismisses the orcs as a mistake and a mockery, promising to wipe off the race and keep Adar alive until the very end to see all of his progeny perish. Observing that Galadriel's search for Morgoth's successor should have come to an end with her own mirror, Adar says that Galadriel is also an elf who has been corrupted by darkness. After hearing these remarks, Galadriel threatens to kill him, but Halbrand stops her. Adar also refers to Galadriel as an Uruk. Adar doesn't ask Halbrand who he is before Galadriel leaves with the hilt. Halbrand is silent as he walks away. Before Halbrand approaches Galadriel as she sits with her sword close to the forest, they see how they both drew back from each other. After fighting beside her for the Southlands, Halbrand feels he can be free of his past as Galadriel commands. The Queen Regent then issues an invitation to Halbrand. The Southlanders rejoice in their triumph in the village as Bronwyn meets Miriel, and they discuss the success they have both found. Halbrand is subsequently introduced to Bronwyn by Miriel, and the doctor takes note of his necklace bearing the Southland monarchy's emblem. She queries Halbrand about if he is the promised ruler for the Southland. Halbrand states with some hesitation that he is. Halbrand, king of the Southlands, is then hailed vociferously by Bronwyn. Galadriel then hands the hilt back to Arondir, who then walks up to Theo while grieving for both himself and Adar, while also handing the hilt into his care. Theo receives the hilt from Arondir, who advises him to give it to the Númenóreans to throw into the water when they return to their home. But when Arondir leaves, Theo opens the blanket containing the hilt and discovers a straightforward wooden axe in its place. The real hilt, which changes into a smoking sword before Waldreg inserts it into a slot in the stone and turns it, is then seen by us in the Watchtower's ruins being held by Waldreg. This causes the dam close to the fortress to break, allowing massive amounts of water to descend into the Southlands from above. Further devastation of the country is caused by the massive water flowing through the tunnels that Adar's forces constructed. Elendil tells Isildur he learned to talk to horses from Isildur's mother while they are conversing in the village about how to talk to a horse. Before water starts to erupt from the wells and tunnels beneath the settlement, the two and everyone else in it hear an immense rumbling. As the flood rages through the tunnels below, a shackled Adar in the barn puts his ear to the earth. The water quickly makes its way to a volcano, where it plunges into the molten lava below. The resulting pressure causes a massive eruption that hurls rocks and flames toward the village. Many present are struck by the flying debris, and Elendil rushes to defend the Queen Regent as Isildur looks for his horse. While King Halbrand and Queen Regent Miriel urge everyone to evacuate, Arondir and Bronwyn look for Theo. Galadriel stands and observes the approaching smoke, ash, and fire with horror. Adar is seen to have escaped from the barn. As the eruption envelops her outside, Galadriel closes her eyes. One of the most spectacular television episodes in recent memory was that. We were treated to breathtaking visual effects as a volcano eruption devastated the countryside and put the entire cast in danger, in addition to the blockbuster experience of the war for the Southlands. Elrond's mission with Prince Durin IV and the storyline involving the Harfoots and the Stranger were sensibly ignored in favor of focusing solely on the characters involved in the pivotal fight. With Joseph Maywell playing the villain in an appropriately evil but subdued performance, the mysterious Adar's mystery was finally given some further depth and an explanation. The best part was his confrontation with Galadriel, who was played by a poisonous but conflicted Morfydd Clark. In that scene, we learned that vengeance is undoubtedly one of the many forms that darkness can take. Halbrand was formally crowned, but despite the joyous atmosphere, we can't help but worry about the strange nature of Halbrand's history and how it relates to Adar. Could he still be Sauron, and Adar's apparent killing of the Dark Lord be the events to which he alludes when speaking to him? Time will only tell. It appears that, despite the valiant efforts of our heroes, Adar's scheme has been successful, and with the assistance of nagging Waldreg, he has wreaked volcanic havoc throughout the Southlands. The next question is what will survive and who will? What is the evil Adar's latest creation? After that heartbreaking cliffhanger to the Rings of Power's best episode yet, there are many questions about where the series will go next and which characters will be along for the ride. However, we will have to wait and see.